I had been saving for years. Every extra shift, every skipped night out, every carefully planned budget. It was all for this. A once-in-a-lifetime trip to Europe for my parents. They had always dreamed of visiting France, Italy, and Spain, but money was always tight. So I decided to make it happen. I booked everything myself: luxury hotels, private tours, fine dining experiences. I wanted them to feel special, to have an experience they would never forget. It wasn't just about giving them a vacation. It was about showing them how much I appreciated them, how grateful I was for everything they had done for me. The excitement was unbearable. The flight was scheduled for the next morning, and I could hardly sleep. I kept checking my emails, making sure every reservation was confirmed. I even had a little surprise planned, an upgraded suite at the hotel in Paris. My parents had no idea. That morning, I drove to their house, my heart pounding with anticipation. My suitcase was packed, my passport ready. This was it. I was about to share this incredible adventure with them. But as I knocked on the door, I noticed something strange. My mom opened it hesitantly, and my dad stood behind her, arms crossed. Their expressions weren't what I expected. "Sweetheart, come in. We need to talk," my mom said softly. A cold wave of anxiety washed over me as I stepped inside. Something was wrong. The air in the room was heavy, like they were about to deliver bad news. I sat down, gripping the armrest of the chair. "What's going on?" My dad exhaled sharply. "We've been thinking, and we decided that Lauren should take your spot on the trip." I blinked, my brain refusing to process the words. "What?" My voice barely came out. "She needs it more than you," my mom added. "She's been going through a rough time, and this trip would mean so much to her." My heartbeat pounded in my ears. This had to be a joke. But their faces told me otherwise. I stared at them, waiting for one of them to laugh, to tell me this was just some cruel joke. But their faces remained serious. My mother reached out, as if trying to comfort me, but I pulled away. "You're replacing me?" My voice came out hoarse, disbelief clinging to every syllable. "It's not like that," my dad said, shifting uncomfortably. "Lauren's been struggling. She's had a tough year, you know that." I knew exactly what they were referring to. Lauren had been in and out of jobs, blaming bad luck instead of her own lack of effort. She'd had yet another messy breakup and spent months wallowing in self-pity. And, as always, our parents had been there, coddling her, making excuses. "But I paid for this trip," I said, my hands trembling. "Every hotel, every ticket, every meal." "And we appreciate that," my mom interrupted, her voice placating. "But you're independent, sweetheart. You're strong. You'll have other opportunities. Lauren, she needs this more than you." A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. "You're seriously telling me that my hard-earned vacation, one that I planned for all of us, should go to her instead? And I just stay home?" Mom and Dad exchanged glances, the kind that screamed they had already made up their minds. "We hoped you would understand," my dad muttered. "Understand? How could I?" My chest ached, betrayal settling in like a heavy stone. But then, something shifted inside me. I could have screamed, argued, begged them to reconsider. But looking at their expectant faces, waiting for me to be the reasonable one yet again, I realized something. They had already decided to take something from me. They just didn't know that I was about to take something from them. I forced a smile. "You're right. Lauren probably needs this more than I do." Relief flooded my parents' faces. My mom even reached out to squeeze my hand. "Oh, sweetheart, I knew you'd understand." Understand? No. But I had learned. I excused myself quickly, saying I needed to get home and process everything. The moment I stepped into my car, my hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But more than anything, I wanted them to feel the same sting of betrayal that was tearing through me. By the time I got home, I had already made my decision. I opened my laptop, pulled up my emails, and methodically began canceling every single reservation I had made. The first-class flights? Gone. The 5-star hotels? Canceled. The exclusive dinner reservations and private tours? Erased. With every click, my anger simmered into something else. Satisfaction. They had taken my place. Now I was taking back everything that had made that trip special. It wasn't petty. It wasn't revenge. It was simply giving them what they had given me: abandonment. The best part? They wouldn't find out until they landed. I shut my laptop and sat back, exhaling deeply. For the first time that day, I felt something close to peace. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing nonstop. Call after call, all from my parents. I didn't need to answer to know why. They had landed, and they had found out. Ignoring the calls, I scrolled through my messages. My mom's texts started politely. "Honey, there's been some kind of mistake with the hotel. Can you check?" Then came the confusion. "Our reservations aren't showing up. Did you receive any cancellation notices?" And finally, the panic. "Violet, what did you do?" I smiled. I pictured them standing in the middle of a grand European city, exhausted from their long flight, dragging their suitcases with nowhere to go. No luxury suite waiting for them, no chauffeur, no planned itinerary. Just pure, unfiltered chaos. They had expected to step into the dream vacation I had meticulously planned. Instead, they were stranded, scrambling to fix a problem they didn't even know existed. I could only imagine my sister's reaction. Lauren, who had never lifted a finger to plan anything in her life, suddenly faced with the consequences of taking something she hadn't earned. The calls kept coming. I let them ring. Hours later, a single text from my dad came through. "Fix this now." I stared at the screen, my heart steady. They had expected me to step in, to be the responsible one, to save them. Just like always. This time, I didn't. For 2 days, my phone remained a battlefield of unanswered calls and unread messages. The frantic attempts to reach me slowly dwindled, replaced by silence. It was blissful. Then, they came home. I was in my apartment when I heard the loud banging at my door. Before I could even react, my mom's voice cut through the hallway. "Violet! Open this door right now!" I sighed, standing up slowly. I wasn't afraid. I had spent my entire life bending over backward for them, fixing every mess, making every sacrifice. But this time, I had done nothing wrong. When I finally opened the door, they stormed in. My dad's face was red with fury, and my mom looked on the verge of tears. Lauren stood behind them, arms crossed, wearing an expression that made my stomach turn. Entitlement mixed with pure anger. "What the hell is wrong with you?" My dad spat. "You left us stranded in a foreign country." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "No, I didn't. I just canceled my reservations." My mom let out a sharp breath. "Do you have any idea what we went through? We had to find last-minute hotels, pay outrageous prices. Lauren barely got to see anything." I scoffed. "Oh no. Did poor Lauren not get her free luxury vacation?" Lauren finally stepped forward. "You did this out of spite," she hissed. "Just because I got to go instead of you." I cut her off with a laugh. "You got to go? No, Lauren. You took my place, and yet somehow you still expected me to foot the bill?" Dad slammed his fist on the counter. "You acted like a child." "No," I said firmly. "I acted like someone who finally learned their lesson." The room went silent. For the first time, I saw it. The realization in their eyes that I wasn't the same Violet they had always counted on to just accept whatever they threw at me. And I never would be again. They expected me to apologize, to feel guilty, to break under the weight of their disappointment like I always had. But instead, I felt liberated. I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch between us before speaking. "Do you even hear yourselves?" I asked, my voice calm. "You stole something from me. And then you were shocked when I took something back." "We didn't steal anything," my mom insisted, her voice rising. "We made a decision that we thought was best for the family." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, you made a decision that was best for Lauren, at my expense, like always." Lauren rolled her eyes. "God, you're so dramatic. It was just a trip." "Just a trip?" My anger flared. "I worked for years to make that happen. I gave up vacations, dinners, nights out, all to make that dream possible for our parents. And you?" I turned to them, my voice unwavering. "You looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't needed, that I wasn't wanted." Dad crossed his arms. "We never said that." "You didn't have to." The weight of my words finally settled in. I could see it on their faces, the slightest flicker of shame. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "I'm done," I said, the finality in my voice surprising even me. Done being the responsible one, done being the afterthought, done sacrificing for a family that doesn't appreciate me. Mom's face softened, panic creeping in. "Sweetheart, don't say that. We love you." "Then start acting like it." I grabbed my phone and opened my banking app, staring at the number in my savings. I had spent so long planning for a perfect vacation that never happened. But that didn't mean I couldn't have one now. And this time, it would be for me. 2 weeks later, I was in Rome. The decision had been easy. Instead of wasting any more time mourning what should have been, I booked a solo trip. The same money I had saved for them was now being spent on me, and it felt incredible. I wandered through cobblestone streets, sipping espresso at quaint cafes, watching the world move at a different pace. There was no one to accommodate, no one to compromise for. Every choice was mine alone. One evening, as I sat outside a small trattoria in Florence, twirling pasta around my fork, I let myself breathe. Really breathe. I had spent my whole life being the reliable one, the problem solver, the one who put everyone else first. And where had that gotten me? Cast aside without a second thought. But here, thousands of miles away, I was finally free. A couple at the table next to me struck up a conversation. They were American tourists just like me, but instead of discussing responsibilities or family drama, we talked about life. The places we wanted to see, the things we wanted to experience. I realized something then. This was the first time in years I was talking about my dreams, not just making everyone else's come true. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the supporting character in someone else's story. I was the main character, and I was never going back. A week into my trip, my phone buzzed with a familiar name. Mom. I stared at the screen, debating whether to ignore it like I had the last few times. But something in me was curious. What did she have to say now? I answered. "Hello?" There was a brief silence, then a hesitant sigh. "Violet, where are you?" "In Italy," I said simply, taking a sip of my wine. Figured I deserved a vacation too. Another pause, then, "I see." Her voice was softer than before, almost cautious. "We've been thinking about what happened," she continued. "And maybe we didn't handle things the right way." I raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Maybe?" A deep sigh. "Okay, we messed up. We shouldn't have excluded you like that. It wasn't fair." Hearing the words should have made me feel better, but they didn't, because I knew what this was. Damage control. "I'm not interested in an apology just because you regret how things turned out," I said coolly. "Are you sorry because you hurt me? Or because it backfired?" She hesitated. That told me everything I needed to know. "Look, Violet," she said finally, We want to fix things." I swirled my wine in my glass, watching the deep red liquid catch the light. Fixing things would mean proving to me that I actually matter to you, not just when you need me. Silence. She knew I meant it. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to walk away if they didn't. I leaned back in my chair, waiting. If my mother had something real to say, this was her chance. But instead, all I got was more hesitation. "We do love you, Violet," she said at last. "We just assumed you'd understand. You've always been the strong one." I scoffed. "That's not love, Mom. That's convenience." Her breath hitched, like she hadn't expected me to push back. "For years, I've put this family first. I've worked hard, saved, planned, sacrificed, because I thought that's what family does for each other. But when I wanted something, I wasn't even a consideration. You didn't ask if I was okay with it. You just decided I wasn't needed." "Violet, that's not true," she tried to argue. "Yes, it is," I interrupted. "And you can't change that. What you can change is whether or not you keep treating me like an afterthought." I took a deep breath. I wasn't just venting, I was setting boundaries. If you want me in your life, things have to change. I won't be the one fixing everything anymore. I won't be the one sacrificing while everyone else benefits. And I sure as hell won't be the person you only appreciate after you need me. The line was quiet. Finally, she spoke. "That's a lot to ask." I smiled. "No, Mom. It's the bare minimum." She didn't have a response to that. For the first time, the weight of my family's expectations wasn't on my shoulders anymore. Whatever happened next was on them. I ended the call feeling lighter than I had in years. No guilt, no second guessing, just peace. But as I sat there, watching the sunset over the rooftops of Rome, a small thought crept in. Had I gone too far? Yes, they betrayed me. Yes, they treated me like I was disposable. But canceling everything without telling them, was that cruel? Was it fair to leave them stranded, even if they deserved a taste of their own medicine? I won't lie, part of me enjoyed it. Not out of malice, but because for once, I wasn't the one left scrambling. But then, I remind myself of one thing. If I hadn't done this, would they have ever realized how badly they treated me? Or would they have just continued, expecting me to always be the reliable one, the one who never says no? I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret finally demanding respect. But what do you think? Was I justified, or did I take it too far?